So we've got a big release from OpenAI. They've just launched their Docs MCP. Now think of this like a tool that can basically help you to build anything in their ecosystem, whether it's ChatGPT apps or an app yourself using their coding agents. And in short, what the Docs MCP does is it lets your agent pull in the latest docs and API references directly into your project. So we've wired it into a skill. So the coding agent that we're working is always injecting that fresh context from OpenAI's developer docs. And remember, they're always updating these developer docs. So you want to make sure that you're using it. And this means that every single time you will have the most up-to-date development docs that are being used. And building apps with the Apps SDK also just got a lot easier. It basically means because you just use this skill, it pulls in the UX rules, the UI guidelines, tool annotations, submission requirements, all these kind of things. So it makes it very easy to build everything when you're using the MCP. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you basically how to get it set up and how to use it. And we'll walk through adding the MCP to Cursor, things like installing the skill from GitHub. We're then going to build a full ChatGPT app from scratch. And the agent's basically going to fetch the docs in real time, scaffold the app, handle even the commerce flow, generate the submission checklist. So everything you need to know about how to use the new MCP, build a ChatGPT app with it, and we're going to cover all of that today.
So what is the OpenAI Docs MCP? Think of it as a little plugin you can add to any coding agent that will be able to dynamically search and read any of the OpenAI developer documentation. So we have now upskilled our coding agents to always be able to read and understand the latest and greatest from the OpenAI dev resources. This solves a real problem. The developer docs, they're updating very fast. We know the speed at which some of the products are shipping. And if you are manually reading or copy pasting, there's a good chance the docs are still within weeks. So if you want to always work with the latest and greatest, you have to use this MCP. Let's go ahead and see how we can play around with it. There is no authentication, and there's a nice quick start on their resources/docs MCP to get it into Codex, VS Code, or Cursor. We're going to go ahead and use Cursor. So we'll just go ahead and click this Add to Cursor button, which will open our cursor. And it will immediately allow us to install this MCP server, put in a name, URL, and click Install. I already have it installed, so just click that. You're going to see this. It should be green, and you'll be able to see the tools that it will have access to. Tools are just little capabilities inside an MCP server, and they'll be able to search, list, fetch, the little requirements that are necessary for the coding agent to get the docs into its context. So let's go ahead and give it a go. Let's go ahead and talk to it, and let's specify, hey, OpenAI developer docs MCP. Can you define what a ChatGPT app is? So you can see that it's listed all those tools. It's decided that it needs to search the docs, and it's going to essentially now have a look inside all the developer docs to get us a really good definition. And you can imagine for any kind of query, it's going to then intelligently be able to find, okay, what are the docs I need to make sure I'm not missing anything before it provides an answer. So this is a lot stronger than a web search where it could be looking at resources that are not official, or a lot stronger than just trusting the agent to come up with an answer and very likely hallucinate. So it actually even gives me a link, which it used to give its answer, and it gives a nice definition. So that shows a little bit of the power of having always that up-to-date information in a coding agent. Why do we care? What can we do with this? Where my mind went as someone who's building a lot of apps on ChatGPT is this could create a phenomenal skill. So let's first talk about what a skill is. A skill is essentially a package of context or instructions that tells an agent how to do something. So it will provide lots of scenarios or steps. Think of it almost as an IKEA manual to install that Billy bookcase. And then anyone who has that manual can figure out, okay, that's how we're going to create that bookcase. And this is really popular. It's really taken off. And you can, for instance, go to mcpservers.org/Claude Skills. But skills are usable across essentially now more and more almost any coding agent, or even beyond coding agents, any LLM client. And they go beyond development, right? So here's a notebook LLM skill, where it will give clear instructions to an agent when to use it, and then a workflow. So step 1, step 2, step 3, and the output here would be to create a certain notebook LLM output. Now, the important thing about a skill is that there is a skill markdown file, which is kind of the top level instructions, and it may point to resources, which is needs. And this is where you would, for instance, put documentation, right? Hey, step 2, reference the documentation to understand how to build an app on ChatGPT. Now, obviously, there's a problem, right? If we copy paste those docs in, within a few weeks, they'll be still. There will be updates, and the skill will be working in the past. The MCP solves that because we can come in and essentially point the skill to always read the docs via the MCP server. And it will intelligently bring in the context it needs to go through the process of building an app. So that's what we've built. ChatGPT Apps SDK Skill. It's specifically targeted for creating apps, and here's our skill file. It will have a clear description of it uses the MCP server to fetch the latest documentation to build with the ChatGPT Apps SDK. And it has a very clear list which starts with verify that we're connected to the MCP, and we will actually stop the skill, the process, if we do not have that connectivity. This is not listing out their docs, it's getting the intelligent docs and using that to build the app. So let's go ahead and play around with it. To add a skill, let's first grab the GitHub URL, just click on code, go to HTTPS and do this little copy here. That's the URL that a coding agent needs to be able to add it. In Cursor, skills are a relatively new feature. So to use them, make sure in beta you have nightly update access toggled. If you don't, you may need to restart it, but this will allow you to use skills. And then you can go to Rules, Skills, Agents. And skills are actually under rules in Cursor. So just click New, add from GitHub, paste that URL, and that's going to add the skill. I already added it. So for some reason, it's even there twice, won't matter. And you can verify by looking on the left. You'll see .cursor/skills, and then the name of the skill with the skill file. So whenever we are going to talk about building an app on ChatGPT, Cursor will intelligently apply the skill. You don't have to say, use this skill. It has the context, and it will say, great, I actually know how to do that. And then, great, I even know how to get all the documentation to build the app you want. So let's go ahead and give it a go, and we'll start a new agent. We're using Codex, although feel free to use any agent you want. We are using Codex today, a bit in the spirit of OpenAI, but feel free to use any strong coding agent with high amount of context. Opus 4.5 would work well, Sonnet 4.5 would work well, Gemini would work well, but we're choosing Codex 5.2 today. Then let's ask it, build ChatGPT app. Let's build I want to show off a bit of this commerce feature that also there's some docs about agentic commerce. So let's think of a commerce use case. Let's build a yo-yo store. The user selects a yo-yo and has an instant checkout experience. Anything else to add? A bit simple. Don't want it to make this too complex. So 4 products, and keep all the data in the widget state. So what that means is we're not going to add a database. We're just going to keep all the data in the app because we're really just doing this as a showcase. And that's it. We're in agent mode. This means we're going to let it directly code. And we're doing this because we have a phenomenal skill and we have a high degree of trust. So we're going to let that run. Immediately, it'll read our skill file. It picked up that we need the skill to build that app. And the first thing it's going to do is test that it has access to the MCP. While it runs, let me quickly explain in the skill that we have a few resources, and this is essentially a little skeleton template. One of the steps will be start with this template. This just makes it a little bit easier. It will then be able to iterate from a core set of minimal code to add all the features based off of the documentation. Another thing I want to call out is that to submit an app to the OpenAI platform, you're going to need to have quite a few considerations. One of them will be tool annotations. So these are very clear descriptions of all the capabilities that your app can do. And you're also going to need to have a whole bunch of things just to get it submitted, right? And this is all in the docs, the tool annotations, and there's something called the app submission guidelines. And the skill actually will review both. It's going to look at the tool annotations and apply them correctly, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's going to look at the app submission checklist and try to check off as many as it can, and also create a checklist for you at the end to show what you still need to do before you can submit it. We're going to go ahead and let this run, and we'll come back, we'll check in. So grab a little coffee and we'll check in when it's done. Okay, awesome. So it looks like it finished. It built a minimal ChatGPT app for a yo-yo store. And it looks like we also have the app submission checklist. So it created the tool annotations, the description, and it states the things that we still need to do when we're ready to submit. To actually view and play around with what we've built, we need to do 2 things. First, we need to install it and run it locally. And then we need to open something called an MCP inspector to visualize it just locally on our machine without having to go through the process of connecting it to the actual ChatGPT platform, which just takes a lot of time. So this is just to make our life easy. So it actually gives me the terminal commands. This will be the same for you if you're following along at home. And just make sure you're in something called the terminal here, and you just paste them in and you click enter, and then that installs it, and this starts it so that we have it running locally on our machine. Our app is live, so you can see it's listening on, and here's a URL. We're going to need this URL to put into our MCP inspector. So I'm going to copy. Now, an MCP, there's a couple options. It's essentially just a tool that will let you see what an app looks like, interact with it, almost like a simulator of ChatGPT or a different LLM agent. And it's just a fast way to quickly test and iterate, because likely maybe we'll want to make some changes and we'll be able to quickly see the result in an app like this. MCP Jam is a solid option. They have a desktop and Windows app you can download. Let me go ahead and open my MCP Jam, and at the top here on servers, click add server, and let's go ahead and call it our yo-yo app. The connection type will be HTTP, and that's where you just put in that URL that we copied from our cursor terminal. There's no authentication, so we can just add it. And we are connected, so we can go into a chat And we should be able to play around with our apps. Hey, I want to buy a yo-yo. So this is it. Looks like we have a little yo-yo store. The design looks pretty solid. It's very minimal. And obviously the docs are not going to go on give you incredible design. They're going to give you the core minimal. So this is really, think of it like as a base, a foundation, where now you can add your own flavor. And that's exactly what the docs should be doing. So this looks like a well kind of core doc app. So let's go ahead and select a nebula, spin, going into a nice instant checkout flow. You can select more. I don't know if these are expensive or cheap. $24. I think this is probably a pretty premium yo-yo. You can go back, you can check out, processing, and can buy another. You can keep going. Great, I think this is a pretty good result. And remember, this was built using live docs using the Docs MCP server. So if there is an update tomorrow or in a few days, this skill will always be able to pull what the current docs are and build according to those specs and those possibilities and guidelines. So this skill, GitHub, will be in the description. The OpenAI MCP docs link will also be linked. We'll also link our Apps on ChatGPT Discord. So if you're stuck, go in there. We're happy to answer any questions and go build something. Share what you're doing. Happy building.